Hey everybody, welcome to the channel, and if you are here, it is because you might be interested in learning a little bit about how to start the 737 from PMDG from Microsoft's Flight Simulator 2020. We decided to do a step-by-step tutorial to just get the plane up to takeoff. We had some members in chat that said they weren't sure how to get the airliner going, and we also had some members who thought autopilot was a little too easy. Hopefully that'll address some of those questions or concerns on how to get this aircraft off the ground. This is something we do on stream pretty much every night, so if you're interested in checking out more, check out the channel. Max says I have the Phoenix and the 700, but I never fly them. I suck with airliners. Just like hand flying, too much time to figure it out reading manuals. If you want to learn an airliner, you won't need to read a manual for this plane. The company that put this out, PMDG, has some really good tutorials, and there are good tutorials. We have checklists that we follow. Autopilot isn't too hard. It's not, but I wouldn't minimize what you see around here. I wouldn't minimize everything you see here, including the computer, to just the words autopilot. There's a lot you have to do to set up correctly to make autopilot work. Pressing the autopilot button is very easy. Doing all the things to make autopilot do what it needs to do is not that easy, and if it were, more people would do it. You're just scaring me away from airliners again. No. It's not difficult. This is the checklist I'm using. This is one I use all the time. The more you do it, the more you learn where it is. There are a couple steps, like this one here, the set FMC obtain clearance, that's very time consuming. I'm going to walk through this checklist. So parking brake, it's down here. You have to pull up on it. And in this plane, the only way you can do that is to make sure your pedals are pressed. It will not work. So as soon as I press my pedals, it goes away. But if I press my pedals, you can see how they go down. As soon as I press my pedals, then I can click this. But you can't click it unless they're pressed. So that's the first thing on the checklist. Next thing is battery and standby power on, auto, guard closed. So that was right here, and it was open, but it was off. So then I clicked it and it turned on. Next one says emergency exit lights, auto, guard closed. So emergency exit lights are right here in the middle. So we're going to close that guard. Next one, ground power confirm connected. So ground power is right here, but it's not connected. In this plane, you have to connect it in the computer. You go FS Actions, Ground Services, and then you can see where it says ground power, and we're just going to request it. This here is our ground power, and now we have a yellow cable. There it goes. So now it says release, so it's connected. Now that it's connected, we have a light. We now have where it says ground power available and a blue light, so now you can actually turn it on. Lights as required. FLIG turns on every light. As required, I don't turn on any of these lights until a little later. But you can turn on, for your lights, you can turn on your circuit breaker lights. You have your overhead panel. I've got it to where when we start this plane, it saves the setting of the lights. So every time I start the plane, they're always the same. Here is another one, like these flood lights here, panel lights there. There are lights just kind of everywhere in this plane. And then there's some more over there, all of these, and there's more over here for the co-pilot. So that's lights is required. Now, IRS, set to nav. IRS is at the top of the ceiling. So this is the whole ceiling. And this is the IRS right here. This is what's going to basically tell the plane where it is. So we're going to put it on nav. The next thing on the checklist is warning, caution, fire, oxygen tests completed. I never do these. I always skip this step. Someday we're going to have a fire, and we'll know why, because I always skip the step. Passenger signs are seatbelts. This chime only where it says that is basically like if you had no electronic devices or no smoking. You can see it says no smoking. So we're going to put seatbelts on. I don't do auto. I actually put it on and then that. Next one is electronic hydraulic pumps on. The electronic hydraulic pumps are right here. We just turn those on. Elect 2, elect 1. The next one on the list says yaw damper. Turn that one on. That's over here to the left. Turn it on. Next one is window heat on. And that's up top right. For this one, I do the left side left forward and the right side right forward. I don't do the middle one. So now what we're going to do is we have to turn on the APU. The APU basically is going to give us some power before the engines take over. We are going to have this turned on so when we get our pushback, we can already have power. That way our ground power will be disconnected, but we'll still have power. So we're going to turn on our left aft fuel pump. Left aft is right here. Okay, so here's left, here's right, here's aft. So now that we have the left aft fuel pump on, we can turn on the APU. It says APU start and monitor. And that is right here. So we're going to go down 1. It's on. Now we have to go 1 more and start. Now what you do is we watch this needle. It said monitor. So we watch this needle and it's going to go up to about 800 degrees. And then it's going to drop back down to 400 degrees. And once it gets to 400 degrees, the APU is fine. All right, so now it got up to 8 and it's dropping. It's just going to drop down to 4. Okay, so now that it stabilizes at 4, you can see where this light comes on. So what we're going to do now is turn on. The next step in the checklist is APU bleed. So after 1 minute of the APU being on, you set it to on. APU bleed is over here. Just turn that on. Next one, APU gens on and generating power. So now that we have this, the gens are off, we're going to take both of these APU gens and that blue light will go away. So now we have APU power. Next one, packs to auto. Packs are over here. They're currently off. So we just go down to auto, auto. Next one, isolation valve open, and it already is. It's already set there. Isolation valve, the default position for this is open. So now, this is where, for this set FMC obtain clearance, this is where, if you've never done an airliner before, you're going to want to watch a video on how to set an FMC in a 737. There are great videos out there. They'll talk you through all the steps. I won't go through everything. I'll talk through it, but I won't go crazy with it. So essentially what I do, the first thing I do is I go to the main menu and I click on FMC, and then I'm going to go to pause in it, and I'm going to clear. So this bottom line here where it says enter IRS position, I want that to go away so I can type things. So I need to clear. And so what I do here is I put in the reference airport. We are starting in Memphis. So I do KMEM. And when I put that, it's going to come up with a coordinate. And so I'm going to copy that coordinate. I'm going to paste it into the position. We've now told the airplane where we are. So I'm going to go route. And I'm going to clear. So KMEM needs to go away. I'm going to clear that. Now, what you can do with this plane is you can access your flight in SimBrief. Here's SimBrief. Okay, here's where I've put our flight in. I've already programmed it in here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to download into the plane all the information that you see here, but not all of it gets downloaded. What I've done is I've taken the SimBrief downloader. It's a separate program that you can use. And you can see where it says PMDG flight plan and wind uplink. And I've already taken this flight. You can see up here where it says MEM, KMEM to KMCO. So it already knows that we've selected a flight from Memphis to Orlando. And then I went on and downloaded that flight into a folder that directly corresponds to this airplane. So when I go to this flight plan request right here, it's going to search that folder for all the flights that I've put in it. And so I'm going to find that Memphis to MCO. Here it is right there. So now it already knows where it is. It says 625 miles. and I select that, and it's in gray, so we're going to wait for it to request. Okay, now we can activate it. So we're going to activate that flight. Now that we've activated it, we execute. So now you can see KMEM to KMCO. It has both. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to departure and arrival. So now it knows where we're starting, it knows where we're finishing, but it doesn't usually load your departure and your arrival for you. So click departure, and we're going to pick the information that's on this page. Okay, so just looking here, I'm looking right here where it says 18C. You can see that right there, 18C. So we'll end up clicking the button next to that. And then you can see here where it says this pipe 6 or pipey 6. And then an iBoofy, iBoofy? I don't know. That's a weird name for the transition. So those are the three things we're going to do. 18C, pipey, iBoofy. So 18C, pipey, iBoofy. So they're all three selected, and now we hit execute. Go back to departures and arrivals. Now we need to figure out how we're going to land the plane. Now, because we're not talking to air traffic control, I go on and I just put all this in. If air traffic control were on, we might not want to put this in, because even though we could put this in, they might tell us to do something different based on the weather or traffic. But since we're not going to be doing that, I go on and I just put everything in. That way I don't have to think about it later. So for the arrival tonight, we're doing 36 right, the Grinch 4 with the DITA transition. So those three things, 36 right, Grinch 4, DITA. So in this plane, you can see 36 right is not a choice, so I have to hit next page, and now it is ILS 36 right. So now there's Grinch 4, and there's DITA. Now, there are some things that are not on this list. The DITA and Grinch 4 are not this floozy. It's probably floozy and tramp. So in this situation, if you have to figure out if you're going to use floozy or tramp, you have to pull up NavGraph charts. So let's pull up some charts. So for the approach, we said we were doing 36 right. So here's the, wait, that's 35. Here is the 36 chart. And there's floozy, and there's tramp. Now, if I click on this icon at the top, it will superimpose that chart with our flight plan, so I can see where we're coming from. So the question is going to be, when I'm coming down this way, because we're coming from north and then down, do I want to cut it short and go, or do I want to go a little farther? This, you know, air traffic control would probably tell you which one to take. But since we don't have that, we have to make the decision on our own, and it's really, again, personal preference. Do you just want to go longer on that turn or shorter? I'm going to go longer. We've done this before, and I think it helped to have a little bit more time to round that corner and get established. So I'm going to choose tramp. So hit tramp, execute. We've done our departures and our arrivals. So if I go to the legs, we now can see everything that we connected or downloaded from SimBrief. So I'm going to go through this list and see if there's any discontinuities or maybe duplicate waypoints. There's really never duplicates unless you do something wrong. We do have a vector from Bryce to Tramp. And so you can see, here's Bryce. Okay, here's Bryce. If we went from Bryce direct to Tramp, it would be this angle. And we wouldn't be able to make that turn. We would not be able to turn that. So you want to go straight down. I'm going to take vectors And then I'm going to go direct to tramp once I'm down here. So I'm going to extend this before I turn left into tramp. If I went straight at an angle, I would end up rounding this corner way too far out to come back, and we would not be on the line. So we're going to leave that vector there, and then everything else looks great. Okay? Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to init ref, and we're going to perf init request. This is also going to do what we did earlier. It's going to download it from where we did SimBrief earlier. So it's just requesting it. It found the 2 airports this way. All the information for the flight, most of the information is going to be downloaded. Weights and fuels and costs and things like that. But so it's ready. So we load, execute. So I do a few things here. The first thing you can see is that cruise wind is blank. It's empty. So I have to fill that in. I find that right here where it says average wind, 323 at 21. So that means it's 21 knot wind coming in from the northwest. 323 is northwest. So I'm going to type here 323/021 and then put that there. Now the flight that we're doing tonight, you can see here, is 39,000 feet. But when it downloaded the flight information, you can see here that it made it 37,000. So I'm going to go to cruise, and you see where it says FL370? I'm going to replace that with FL390 because SimBrief told me 39,000. You don't have to do that, but that's what I'm going to do. The next thing I'm going to do is for descent. We want to put in the winds that are going to be, that we're going to have to fly through on descent. Part of what I did, let me show you. Part of what I did here with the SimBrief downloader was this wind uplink. So I downloaded wind information for this flight, and this is where you do it. You click forecast and then request those descent winds. Now this takes like 15 seconds or so. So it's going to, right now it's in gray. It's requesting everything that we got from this wind uplink. You can also change these, but it has like set altitudes and what the wind direction and wind speed are at those altitudes as you're descending. But I never change it. I just leave it. So now we can load. And now you can see at 25,000 feet, the wind is at 9 knots coming from heading 74, 15,000, 6,000, etc. So execute. So now what I'm going to do is go back to init ref. Transition altitude in the United States is 18,000, so I don't have to deal with that. I need to put in the right amount of fuel. So I'm going to go menu, FS actions, fuel. It always defaults to over 11,000 kilograms. It says 54%. I look at SimBrief, and SimBrief says 7524 kilograms. So I'm going to put 7524 in fuel. And that one's done. So go back to init ref, and I'm going to hit N1 limit. I'm not going to change any of these. You can derate it. This basically means you can make the airplane not work quite as hard as it's taking off. I don't do that with this plane. You can. A lot of people probably do. I just don't. Now I'm going to hit takeoff, and I'm going to set up some information for when we take off. So I'm going to tell the plane that I'm going to have my flaps at 5 degrees. And then once I've done that, and I've already put fuel in, it can calculate what the center of gravity is in the plane. So you hit the button next to it, it comes up with 23.2, and I hit it again, and it copies it. When it does that, it tells me what the plane's trim needs to be when I leave, 5.56. So right now, I'm going to go on and change the trim. Hold on, I know you can't see that, so I'm going to do that. So you can see it says 450, and we wanted, what was it, 556. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it's very finicky. This thing's very finicky to get it to be exact. Like you can see, it's constantly going around it, but depends on how OCD you are. Now that we've done fuel, flaps, center of gravity trim, we're going to go on and get our V speeds. So we're going to hit the button next to all V speeds. 126, 129, 136. So we're going to need to know that 136 for later when we set the speed for when we're leaving, but we don't need to worry about it right now. So now, for the computer, we've pretty much done everything we need to do for the flight. We've already put all the legs in. Now that you can see we've put in all the information in the init ref, we now have altitudes and speeds next to every waypoint. So when we use VNav, it will make sure we're at the correct altitude and at the right speed. So those are all perfect. So the next thing we're going to do, altimeter set. This is where ATC would tell you what it is, but since I don't have ATC, I'm going to hit the letter B on my keyboard, and it automatically detects what the altimeter is in the sim, and it went down to 29er, 89er. Next one is transponder set. This would be, again, ATC would tell you what your transponder code is. It's basically going to identify you. Since I'm not doing that, I always do just 2000. 2000, my understanding, is a stock IFR transponder. So we go down here. There are 4 dials. Each one corresponds to a number. I'm just going to do 2000. So the first dial is 2. Then I can do 0, 0, 0. I'm going to go TA only. You're supposed to do TARA, but in the sim, sometimes these planes like to yell at you because of all the traffic we do while flying on stream. So I just do TA only. But you'd have to do TARA usually. So those are done. We've already done fueling, loading, boarding.
Captain, boarding is complete and all passengers are on board.
And we've already done takeoff data. That was where we did it with 5 flaps and the center gravity trim. We've done all that. Cruising altitude pressurization. So that's over here. I'm going to adjust this to the 39,000. So this is for cabin pressure. We said we're going to be at 39 tonight. Now, I also, at the same time, why is the windshield wiper on? I must have hit that. That's funny. So if ATC told you, climb, maintain 14,000 feet, and then expect flight level 390 in 10 minutes, you could put in 14,000. But since we don't have ATC, I'm just going all the way to 39. So we've done cruising altitude. I'm not doing landing altitude pressure. You can do that, but I usually skip it. You probably should. So now, MCP, that is short for Mode Control Panel, and that is this entire thing here. So I only do a few things here. I've already done one, the altitude. The other thing I do is my heading and my speed. So we said earlier that V speed, when I went to here, 136, I usually set this speed for like 10 faster. 146. So now for heading, I'm going to figure out what runway we're taking. For this flight, we said we were taking, because I've already forgotten, 18C. So if I zoom in, here's 18C, and you can see the heading is 180. So I'm going to set the runway to be the heading. I'm going to set the heading to be what the runway heading is, 180. So we'll adjust this to 180. So we've done speed, heading, altitude, and that's what I do for this mode control panel. So this is where you would check your departure. Our departure is this here, and if I hit this button, it'll show what we're going to be doing. We're going to be going south. So we're going to be doing 18C and going straight down. It is literally a straight out flight. Very, very easy. Heading south, flying south. Very easy. Next one, radios. So if ATC tells you a certain comm frequency, this is where you would do it. I do this because I just do. I always put my ILS frequency in at the same time so I don't forget. Since I'm looking at the checklist, I just go on and do it now, and then I can double check it later. So the frequency is on this ILS chart, and it's right there in that big old blue circle, 110.7. So 110.7 you would put right there where it says 110.5. So now it's 110.7. Now that those are done, we're ready for a pushback. So we're going to close the doors, get the ground equipment away, chocks away, and request a pushback. So we're going to do those all here. All of that is done here. I hit menu, FS actions, check doors. You have to hit next page. Make sure all the doors are closed. Previous page, everything's closed because it's asking you to open the door. Hit return. Ground services. We're going to release ground power. We don't need it anymore because the APU is on. So release that. We're going to remove the chocks. Now go back to menu, FS actions, pushback. So in this plane, you're going to tell the pushback, you're going to tell the tug which direction to push you. So I'm going to use my chart. I'm going to look at the airport chart. I can see my plane is facing that way, and I can see that I need to get to 18 center. So I'm going to have to be pushed back where the nose goes to the right. So if I go nose to the right, I should be facing up. I'm going to hit this where it says straight out. And now turn nose. It's already on the right. That's all I have to do. So select tug. Start. You probably can't hear it, but you can hear a conversation between the pilot and the pushback tug. And they said, release parking brake. It won't push us until I release the parking brake. So before I release it, I'm going to tell all the grounds crew that I'm getting ready to get pushed back. So I'm going to do anti-collision light. I go on and do these lights. This is where we blind people on the ground, but I just do all of them because I'll forget if I don't. So now that I've got my lights on and we have a tug connected, I'm going to press my brakes to release this brake. So as soon as I press my feet, and he said brakes released. So now we're getting pushed back, and the nose will go to the right. So we should be facing Devious and Jadot soon. Now, as we're getting pushed back, the next thing on the checklist, fuel pumps on as required. I look here, and I see I have fuel in the left tank, in the right tank, and none in the center. So I'm going to turn the pumps on for the left and the right, but not the center. So that's all 4 of these. Now that we have our fuel pumps on, I need to turn the packs off. The engines will not start with the packs on. Packs are right here, so we turn them off. So he just told me pushback was complete, parking brake set. So I have to hold my feet and then press the parking brake. Brake set. I guess that's a decent pushback. We're going to turn on the engines. We've turned packs off. We have pumps on. Ignition mode selector. You make sure it's on both. And then you put your engine 2 start switch to ground. Those are right here in the middle where it says engine start. We have both. It said make sure it's on both. This is engine 2. We put it on ground. As soon as we put it on ground, you'll start to see on this screen, you'll start to see it climb. Now it's going to stop around 3%. It says when the N2% gets to 20 to 25, you make the fuel control lever go to run, which is, it's easy. So 20 to 25, N2 is right here. You can see on this screen down here, and it's at 29. So that is right here, this fuel lever right below the throttle. So I'm going to do that. And now you'll start to see this climb past the 3.3. So it won't go any farther until you do that. So at this point, you have to wait for engine 2 to get up to about 20%. It's at about 8% right now. So what I'm watching for is for it to basically stabilize, and then you'll see this temperature start to drop. So once that drops and stabilizes, that engine's done. So now we're going to do the exact same thing for engine 1. Go to ground. Watch for this one down here to get in between 20 and 25. And then go on and do... So that's the engine 1 fuel control lever. Once those two engines are on, we're going to turn gens 1 and 2 on. Right now, we have the APU gens on. I'm going to turn this generator on and this generator on. So now you can see how the APU gens have just shut off. So now our engines are on. They're the ones supplying the power to the plane from now on. We have a few more steps before we taxi. Probe heat on. Probe heat is up here. Turn that on. Now, we're not going to do engine anti-ice. Engine 1 and 2 bleeds on. They are already default to on. They're right here. Left and right. They're already on. The next one is packs to auto, recirculating fans to auto, isolation valve to auto. Those are all right here. So recirculating fan is auto, isolation valve auto, and packs to auto. So it's all right here. Next one, APU bleed and APU off. So we don't need APU anymore. So we turn the bleed off, and then we turn the APU off. Don't need it anymore now that the engines are on. Next one, flaps as required. Well, we already told the computer earlier that we were going to do 5-degree flaps. There we go. So it's in that notch in 5-degree flaps. Next one, elevator trim as required. We already did that when we did the 5.56 earlier. Flight controls, full and free. So you just want to make sure that everything turns the way it's supposed to. Looks good. Engine instruments checked. I'm not a pro, so I'm just going to assume they're great. The next one, LNAV, VNAV armed as required. So LNAV, VNAV are right up here. So VNAV, LNAV. Auto throttle armed. So that's right here where it says AT arm. So I'm going to click that. And now, if you were talking to air traffic control, you would request your taxi. So let's say we've done that. We need to turn taxi lights on. Those are up here. And then the next one is auto brake set to RTO. Auto brake is right here. And we put it on RTO. So down, pre-departure at the hold. So basically, I'm done with the checklist until we get to the runway. So I'm ready to taxi. We already know where we're going. We've looked at the chart. We're going to take this kilo and then immediately turn left on Charlie and go all the way down. So we're going to take Charlie 7 to the runway.
Flight attendants, prepare doors for departure and cross-check.
We have it already built in.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you
with
for
the virtual
your
airline.
All important safety
We have
information
all our
is reviewed.
announcements
In
for our
preparation
virtual airline.
departure, be certain that your seat back is straight up and your tray table is stowed. Make sure your carry-on items are placed completely under the seat in front of you or in the overhead bin.
It does a much better job than I
Portable telephones are not
do.
approved for use in flight. However, you may use certain other electronic devices when advised by your crew. If you don't know how to operate the seat rope, you
So
probably
this is our
shouldn't be out in
right
public
turn
unsupervised.
on
Please use
kilo,
the safety
and
instructions
then
card in your seat
immediate
pocket in
left
front of you. It explains the
on
safety
to Charlie.
features of this aircraft as well as the location and operation of exits and flotation devices. If you're lucky, a life vest may be located under your seat. To wear it, tear open the plastic package, remove the life vest, and slip it over your head. Wrap the straps around your waist, snap the two ends together, and tighten. Inflate the vest by pulling down on the red tabs. This vest can be manually inflated by blowing into one end of the red tubes and is equipped with a water-activated locator light. How this works, I have
So we
no
had
idea, but if you figure it
Charlie
out, please
5,
let us
6,
know.
and 7. I'll
As
just
a
take
reminder,
7.
smoking is not permitted in any area of the aircraft, including the lavatories. On behalf of the captain and your entire crew, it is our pleasure to have you on board. Enjoy your flight.
The point is, I'm trying to show that it is not as difficult as people think it might be. However, it is not just turning on autopilot. Okay, so normally with air traffic control, they would tell you to hold short of that runway and not actually enter the runway, and you would do some of these on the checklist before you hit the runway, but we don't have air traffic control. So a couple things. Fuel flow reset, then rate. That's here.
Roger.
So we reset, and then it switches back to rate. I'm not a pro. And I'm sure I'm going to say things that, like, people who do this all the time are like, well, that's not it. I might say things wrong. It's just how I've learned it, and it works for me. Cut this part that I'm talking about. Cut it all. V speeds, check. We already did that earlier. You could check everything you've done. You just double and triple check everything you've done. So we've already done pause lights. Now we're going to turn taxi lights off. And the next part of the checklist says we're supposed to turn the landing lights on and runway turn off lights on. They're right here. The next one is you're supposed to set your transponder to TARA. Again, I just did TA earlier. Showed that earlier. TFC is traffic. We're going to set that to on. That's right here. You confirm. We're going to start our clock, and then you confirm you're on the right runway. We said 18C. We have 18C right underneath us. So we're on the right runway. And then you're supposed to press this clock button, and then you're ready. You're ready to take off. There is more that you can look at. There's more stuff. I won't go through those for this, but at least that gets you off the ground.